right on the tip of my tongue, but if you want to email me, certainly I'd be happy to share those. At this point, we have just over 1,000 customers who have Open Plus Express Hours access. I do anticipate that is going to increase now since June of this year, when we have only Express Hours access on Sundays. But I think that gives you an idea of how many people we had, at least initially, in those first years.
Thank you. Email them to me. I can maybe put them in our packet for our next meeting. We can discuss further.
Thank you. Commissioner Nafisi? We can't hear you, Commissioner Nafisi. There we go.
Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was great. Quick question for you. I know that you said that there's a security guard on site. So is the security guard on site whenever library staff is not available? Is that how you guys do it? Or just sometimes there's no one there?
Well, initially, up until June of this year, we operated morning hours only for Open Plus Hours. And then the library opened to the general public immediately after Express Hours or Open Plus Hours. It never closed with Express Hours. Now, since June of this year, we are closing with Express Hours. And that is why for the last 2 hours of the day, we have now brought in a contracted security guard, at least just initially, just to, dot our I's, cross our T's, make sure that people were going to follow the directions and leave the library when the closing announcements went off and exit the building. I do not have enough, we don't have enough time yet for me to tell you. I can tell you since mid-June it has worked and people hear the closing announcements and they know the library's closing and they leave. So there hasn't been a situation where the security guard has had to kick somebody out or anything like that yet.
Is he there more for like conduct issues or there to monitor to make sure no one is taking items that don't belong? Like what, I'm trying to figure out why have a security guard?
Yeah, neither one. It's only to make sure that people leave the building when the doors lock. And I'll be honest that what will happen if somebody stays in the building is the alarm is going to go off and then we're going to have to pay.
Yeah, totally.
So that's really, that is the extent of the concern. Otherwise and like I said, there have been no issues. And so we don't anticipate keeping that contracted security guard longer than we have to. Since it's all working, we most likely will not keep that guard. And I can tell you in Gwinnett now, they do not have a security guard and they close regularly. Other libraries do that now. They close regularly. So yeah, that is the sole reason. We operated with Express Hours previously. And there was no theft. So that is certainly not a factor. And again, the code of conduct, people followed it. And so if anything, they've embraced it and reported things like to us. There was a customer who told us, oh, well, a newspaper didn't get put out or something, and which is great, but that's been the most serious thing they reported to us other than the guy at the front door that I mentioned before.
Thank you.
Commissioner Koopman.
I believe Director Schramm inadvertently answered it because she said there was no theft, correct? You haven't had any
theft? No theft.
Other than, and no vandalism, no Okay.
No vandalism.
So then my question then would be just more logistical in terms, like you said, that the alarm would go off if someone stayed. Couldn't we, or couldn't you, it just, because I know what we do get charged, individuals get charged, businesses get charged for a false alarm, right? Because if the alarm goes off, the police come. Could we, or could you, or could a library system transfer that to the patron? Like that could be part of the, I wouldn't say code of conduct, but it'd be somewhere in the code of conduct that if you choose to utilize the Open Plus system that and you stay after and trip the alarm, you're responsible for that fee. Could we do, I mean, is that a possibility? Is that?
I think there's all kinds of possibilities. If you as a board, you have complete flexibility, and what I might suggest is maybe you give somebody a pass one time if it was really an accident or something like that. But sure, if they were to do it again, then they would, and you knew it was intentional, then absolutely you would have a decision that you could make and ban that person. And I think that would be a great example of somebody who was not following the rules. They weren't following the code of conduct. They weren't following the policy, and they would be banned and lose their privilege, lose their express hours privileges. They always have the option to come in, during regular hours if they lose their privileges to use the express hours. So that is definitely an option. It would just be up to you as to if that's something you'd want to implement. And
Nancy, I have another question. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
I'm
I'm recording the Olympics.
So when you installed this, and maybe it was a little different since you were building a branch, you were installing it in a new branch, but how much did your IT department and your public works department have to be involved in this versus how much Biblioteca just came in and did everything?
Excellent question. Be prepared to do almost everything. The vendor does very little. Your maintenance people, your IT people, your facilities people, they are going to have to install. Your security company is going to have to be there to meet with the vendor to hook up the security system. It would be better to be pleasantly surprised if Biblioteca did something, but no, they pretty much are providing the software and the equipment, and your folks have to run the cabling. Your facilities people have to hang the panel where you want it for people to scan and come inside the building. It is very much hands-on by your team.
Okay.
And so all those costs have to be factored in. We were very lucky that we got to design the building with those open sight lines and glass doors on the meeting rooms, that type of thing. But one thing we didn't anticipate was that our original magnetic lock closing doors were not going to work. We were hopeful that they were going to work, and we tried it for a couple of weeks and it just was not working. They just wouldn't close and secure properly. And so we spent $20,000 on 2 sets of automatic opening doors, $10,000 each. That was we did not anticipate that expense. So it pays to think those kinds of things through and do your homework like you're doing. If anything, estimate a little high and be pleasantly surprised. Those are all one-time expenses. So the good news is there's a real savings then for operating during those express hours moving forward.
Commissioner Koopman?
Does anyone monitor off-site?
I was wondering if somebody was going to ask me that. Usually that's the one I get. We do not. We do not actively monitor. We do not. We only go back and review footage. It's retained for 5 days. and we would only go back and review it if needed. One benefit that implementing Open Plus at our library had for us was that we were able to look at our privacy policy and we updated it. It needed updating anyways, but there were some of our staff members who were really felt this was extremely important piece of this, because we as librarians believe so strongly in keeping the privacy of our patrons. And so we got this group of employees who felt so strongly about it to actually create a committee, and they were charged with creating this new and revised privacy policy. And they did just a fabulous job. And in that policy, only with director approval or designate can video even be pulled. So it can't be used for, by staff members to watch other staff members or something like that could happen. It is possible for somebody to remotely watch that video, but we do not do that.
Any more questions for Director Schren?
I'll just say one last thing. We have small branches in our county library system where we don't have security cameras at all. And there have been times in other branches where I really wish we would have security cameras. So it's been a tremendous advantage for us to have security cameras in this location. And there is a way to install them and still maintain that patron privacy. So I just wanted to mention that was actually an upgrade, if you will, from some of our other small library branches that have no security system.
Commissioner Koopman.
I want to know what the overall cost per month have been. I mean, I know it's $1,000 a month, correct? But but I also feel there's like you said, you suggested we do our homework in terms of the upfront costs. I mean, you had the distinct advantage of building from the ground up with the new building. But let's say you wanted to install it into another library, another branch of your in your system. How much do you think that would be? Well, we've gotten quotes for other libraries. And again, it's those one-time upfront costs, and it really depends on the square footage. If you're going to incorporate their cameras or use your own. And so it's a little hard to tell you. It also would mean obviously increase your expenditures if you had to make any facility revisions, that type of thing. So it really depends on your personal situation and the space. I don't have therefore a good answer. We have, a similar size space, about 3,000 square feet bigger, that we're going to be implementing this service. But we already have there, for example, the automatic sliding door. So that's not going to be a factor. We will have the camera expense, but there won't be any other, facility enhancements that we had. So it's not real significant. It's not more than $20,000 for that particular install. But it just depends on your specific situation and the facility. Thank you.
Last call for questions with our expert.
I would just like to make a comment.
Yeah, please.
This is so much more helpful than reading any kind of report. So thank you so much for missing the Olympics and joining us and answering all these questions. It was very helpful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Nancy.
Well, you're very welcome. My pleasure. I do believe in it, and I really think it improves customer service and access. So I'm happy to do it, and we'll give you a tour anytime any of you are up in Ventura. So thank you very much.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Awesome. Thank you, Director Anderson. That was awesome.
So I don't know if we want to sort of pick this back up maybe when we get to the strategic planning item as something we might look at for strategic planning. I will say, I think that, so Santa Monica and Torrance got a grant through the state library to install the system in their branches. And I believe that funding is going to be available again this year. But given the work that would be involved from IT and Public Works to even see if this is feasible, and probably the need for like city council to weigh in, et cetera, I think we would have to put it through the strategic planning process, which means, whether it would be possible to apply for those funds this year or we'd have to wait till next year, kind of depends on timing. But if we want to consider this as a strategic planning item, we could discuss it under that item as well.
Commissioner Koopman, your hand's up. Did you want to make a comment on that? Oh, okay. Sorry. It seems like strategic planning is a good fit for that. Or I was thinking member item and referral to staff, but yeah, I don't know. Are there any motion? Anyone want to propose a motion based on the discussion we had, or should we wait for strategic plan? Sounds like we'll move on to item I1, which is discussion of the FY 2021-2022 budget.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention that in the budget process, we, thanks to your letter, I don't know if you all recall that the commission letter this year asked for the tech services position to at least remain frozen as opposed to eliminated, for $50,000 for the collection. I think you all were asking for a permanent allocation for that, and then $8,000 for increases in technology. We actually are able to fill the tech services position. So it's posted right now. I know, super excited. I've been doing that, so I did that job and I'm excited to pass it on. And the position closes on August 20th. So hopefully we'll get a good employee there. And we did get $50,000 for the collection, however, not a permanent allocation, but we did get the allocation again this year. And then we did get $8,000 for technology increases, and it looks like we have to buy 2 new scanners, so that's going to come in even handier than I expected. So thank you all again for your letter. I do think it really helped.
Commissioner Koopman?
I just wanted to clarify, Susan, did you say 15 or 50,000?
50.
Thank you. I couldn't, yes, thank you.
Any more discussion on the budget? All right, the next item on the agenda is item I2, discussion of strategic planning.
So we still don't have a date for strategic planning. You guys may have forgotten, but they did, prior to the city council elections, they did have a strategic planning session with council. They all came up with ideas that they wanted to see on the strategic plan. They were going to vote on them and rank them. We had a changeover of one city council person in that process. So none of that's been enacted yet. I think they just are going to do another strategic planning session, but no date on that has been set. So I don't know, again, this would have to be something you all would vote on. If you are interested in Open Plus, I assume the suggestion for the strategic plan would be something like bring back a report on the feasibility. So it would be a study to see if it would be feasible, say at the North Branch location, which I'm guessing would be the most feasible location. And remember, North Branch has been closed on Fridays since I've been here. And obviously no Sunday hours, and the hours have been reduced a little bit as of this, the budget a year ago. I think it is a good, potential location. And I don't know if you all are interested in that, and if you would want to write a letter to that effect, and if you feel like, because we don't meet again until October, if that's something that you all should get started on now, because I'm not sure when the next session will be. A lot of things to think about.
Commissioner.
I also did want to mention that I know Nancy's so generous to say that, we could have a tour up there in Ventura County, but, we may have El Retiro branch with Open Plus, and so sure we could maybe get a tour there, which obviously would be a lot closer.
Yeah, Commissioner Worsing.
Thank you. So, as I recall, the last round of strategic plan discussions included some very different proposals.
Yes.
And I don't know if those came from the city council. I'm assuming they did. So how would those play into this proposal? I mean, when they do this strategic plan discussion, because I haven't been through this before, will they be looking at everything that they've previously looked at plus anything that's proposed, or do they start with a clean slate?
That is a very good point. And I had kind of forgotten about that because it's been so long. We would already know that strategic plan would have already been voted on, and we would be waiting to see what happened to the item about potentially looking into county service or privatization. And obviously, I think if they're looking at that, they're probably not going to pursue this simultaneously. Now, I think they're going to bring back those same ideas as far as I know. However, when they came up with those strategic planning items, the city budget was looking a lot bleaker than it is now for two reasons. One, they received money, I believe like ARPA funds or other funding since then. And also, and again, it's complicated, but they are moving on the bond issue, which is going to help the city budget. So they are in a better place, and I don't know how that will impact, what they want to pursue. So, we could still you all could still put together a recommendation in case that other item doesn't get enough votes or doesn't carry forward. I don't know.
Commissioner Walls.
Thank you. Circling back to the Open Plus item and whether we want to pursue it as part of the staffing or the strategic plan for the next cycle, I'm not completely clear as far as the whole cost, like the total cost of ownership, both for implementation and for running the Open Plus system. And I know she said $1,000 a month for maintenance, which isn't a ton. But it sounds like they were getting some funding bits and pieces from these different organizations. And so I think what might make sense is to first get an idea of the general cost of the thing, either before discounts or, order of magnitude, how many zeros does it have on that price tag, to see if it's even something that's feasible for us.
Probably the easiest way I could do that, unless it would be possible for me to get a quote from them. I mean, we don't have security cameras, for instance. We don't already have those. I could ask Torrance, what their cost was for El Retiro, and I don't think they had security cameras either. I think they're installing them just for this. And maybe get some sense from that, how much it would be. Or I could probably also find out from Santa Monica, you know, what their upfront costs were. Like what was their grant allotment? Did they have to match it? And I could come back with those figures.
I think that would be really helpful if it's not too much trouble.
Okay. Or the other thing is we make that part of the item is to the item recommendation would be look into the cost and feasibility.
As part of the recommendation of staff to have them look at the whole thing.
Yeah. You know, I'm not sure if it's something that, you know, the city is going to be, as a whole, is going to be interested in pursuing. This would sort of be a chance for them to hear about it and vote on it. You know, if they want to put it on the strategic plan, even to pursue the idea, if it's feasible, you know?
Yeah. And I'm thinking,
anything more, Commissioner Walsh? Or?
Well, I was just kind of thinking it through. The net impact then would be potentially, if we propose to look into it as part of the strategic plan, then actual implementation would be maybe a year or two delayed while that study was being done.
Yeah, the strategic plan runs for 6 months.
Okay.
So it would be
Okay.
6 months to kind of look into the cost, look into the feasibility. And then part of that too, part of the strategic plan is, can IT and Public Works accommodate that in 6 months? Since we don't have our, you know, Ventura County Library System has their own IT department, I'm sure. They may have their own sort of Public Works department to a certain degree. So, you know, we have to kind of look at what the city's workload is as a whole and what else they have on their plate.
We have a new person, or we will soon.
So, you know, at the very least in 6 months, I think we could maybe get a cost estimate, you know, so.
I think that would be good just to let us know if it's worth taking next steps, you know? So should I move?
Do you have a motion on your lips, Commissioner Walsh?
I think we've got some other hands up, and maybe we should.
Yeah, if you want to hold that thought, maybe we can let Commissioner Nafisi weigh in.
I just wanted to piggyback on Susan's kind of answer on strategic plan. The idea of the strategic plan is that you're going to the community for input. So the council members speak and you're allowed to attend. It's supposed to be this very fluid conversation. And everyone brings different ideas to the table. Staff brings ideas to the table. The council members come with ideas to the table, and they welcome
Commissioners.
Commissioners come to the table. They welcome the community to come to the table. So all those things that were discussed last year might come back. They might come back changed. There's really no rules to it. It's just kind of just this open conversation to get input to where they're going to go. So everything's on the table, I think, and it's good for us to speak up too if there's something that we want. So I just want to add those 2 cents. All those things that were discussed last year could come back. They might evolve as something different because the budget looks different every year. It's hard to say, but anything's on the table and we can provide any input to that as well. Hope that's helpful.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, Commissioner Nafisi. Commissioner Hall?
Yeah, just also kind of thinking through the long-term process for this. And I think in addition to finding out how much it would cost and is it feasible that we have, you know, the different city employees that would have to be involved in the implementation, I'm just curious how many hours the library thinks they would want to have for open access, and, you know, maybe getting some kind of rough numbers that we could put into a letter or strategic plan that would show this is the impact we think that would have. This is the number of patrons we think that would serve, you know, et cetera, just so we can kind of justify whatever the cost and the personnel, you know, time that it might take to implement.
I could definitely come up with something. I mean, I would think for the North Branch, it doesn't open till 1. It's open 1 to 7. So like 9 to 1 might make sense. And then Monday, Thursday, and then Sundays would, if we wanted to consider Sundays, and then that would be closing with no staff there, whereas the other days staff would be coming in at noon to start opening. So
similar to what Ventura is doing, it sounds like.
yeah, except even more hours, because it sounds like their branch is open 10, so they're doing 8 to 10, but North Branch doesn't open until 1.
I mean, if it's as amazing as she said, maybe you you offset some of the costs by reducing staff time. Have it 8 till 2. I mean, and just have staff come in to, take care of circulation and put. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud that there could be a business case that not only expanding the service hours, but also maybe offset by labor. From the part-time staff that's there.
Yeah, and part of my thought is if it comes back around that they're looking at, going to a private company taking over library services or things like that, where we don't know what would happen to our city employees that are currently staffed at the library, this might be an alternative to that.
I'm just kind of thinking through how this process works, and I think that and Commissioner Nafisi probably is really familiar with. I think the recommendation from the commission, if you all were interested in pursuing this idea, would be to propose for the strategic plan a study to implement Open Plus branch library. During that 6-month period, I would develop an admin report and a study that would give different scenarios for different hours, for what the cost would be, for things would be in terms of staffing. I mean, all that would be part of the study. And I think that the advantage here is that we don't waste all that time if it turns out that council or the other departments are like, we can't do this, or we're not interested in taking this on right now,
That's a good point. Commissioner, if you see your hands up, and you are our resident expert, so.
I never put my hand up, but you're right. I think having more information to present over when you're discussing an item to potentially be discussed at strategic plan is helpful. So I think sometimes they get this like, oh no, it's not possible, or no, we don't have money for that, or like, if the more information that we can present to them and the more research that we have, that, the more that we can share that, hey, we've spoken to these cities and this is what worked and this is the costs and these are the pros and the negatives and, they haven't had any negatives. That's all helpful for strategic plan, I think. So yeah, so definitely supportive of it.
Maybe as a suggestion, what we could do is set like 2 people, because a lot of times what happens is commissions will go to strategic planning and they'll read a letter as to something that they're recommending. So what we could have is, 2 of you draft a letter and I could work on it with you. And we could just plan to bring it to the next strategic planning, which I kind of guess is going to be October. That's just my hunch. But we could bring it back to our next meeting at the beginning of October if strategic planning isn't until after that meeting, and approve it, and then we could just bring it. If the other item gets on the strategic plan, then this is going to be delayed, but at least council will hear the idea, and something for them to consider. That may actually impact how they feel about the other item.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Commissioner Wilson?
I would be interested in helping to work on that letter.
Thank you. So So Director Anderson, at this point, are we making you're looking for
Well,
us
I
to make a
can't make a
motion?
motion. I can't make a motion.
You're looking to, I guess we should probably make a motion that we have a couple members of the commission draft a letter. Commissioner Worsing, do you want to make that motion, and then maybe we can see if we can get another volunteer?
Okay, so the motion would be to recommend a couple commissioners draft a letter regarding the Open Plus process to be presented to the City Council prior to their next strategic planning discussion.
Or to be presented at strategic planning.
Good plan.
At strategic planning discussion.
So the motion on the table is that we should have a couple commissioners draft a letter to be presented at the strategic planning meeting of the City Council. Is there a second to Commissioner Worsing's motion?
I'll second it. Commissioner Walls.
Commissioner Walls, thank you. Maybe we should figure out who our second is. Is there anyone that wants to be our second commissioner? If not, I'm happy to be the second commissioner.
Thank you. I have a stepdaughter getting married in October, so our family's a little frenzied right now.
So I'll be the second volunteer. All right, so we have the motion and the second. Please say aye with the roll call vote. Commissioner Koopman.
Aye.
Commissioner Nafisi.
Aye.
Commissioner Hannon.
Aye.
Commissioner Walls.
Aye.
Commissioner Hall.
Aye.
Yeah, thank you. And Commissioner Worsing.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. So we'll write that letter for City Council. Anything else on strategic planning? Next item on the agenda is item I3, discussion of the library reopening plans.
Okay, so as you all know, we've kind of done a staged reopening. So I just wanted to bring everybody up to speed on where we are now. On June 15th, we did return to full capacity. This is per county guidelines at both locations. We added our seating back, so we have all our chairs back and everything. And we reopened the study rooms. So now we're looking at programming and meeting room reservations. We do have 4 in-person outdoor children's events planned for August. And I can go into those in more detail in my director's report. And then we are looking at bringing back story times in September. That's what the plan is right now. We gave ourselves sort of the cushion of August to sort of see what's happening with the Delta variant. If we have to delay those plans, we'll do some more outdoor children's programming in September, if that's allowable, but hopefully we'll be back to in-person inside the library. We have started contacting some of our regular programming volunteers to see if they're interested in coming back to lead programs. The writers group is interested, but they don't want to return until October. So we've got them back on the schedule in October. Poetry group, not comfortable in person yet. So, but hopefully, depending on where we are with the pandemic, they'll be comfortable coming back soon. We have a lot of adult programming on Zoom now, but I have been talking to my adult programming coordinator about, if she's getting approached by people who want to do in person to start booking those in September as well. So, it's always an uncertain situation, but right now we're just going to go ahead and plan like we're going to be able to do in person in the fall. So that's the hope. And then meeting room, we're going to start booking that again in September.
Yes, Commissioner Koopman.
When will we start meeting in person?
I think maybe in our October meeting. Right now, they're getting the council ready for, they're getting the council chambers ready for city council. Staff needs to be trained on how to use all the new equipment. So as soon as city council's in there, then I'm sure commissions will follow after that. The question will be how comfortable city council people and commissioners feel about being in person. If everybody has to wear masks, is that, how comfortable people are going to be with that in a meeting. So there are some questions there, but I think there's a fair shot that maybe by October we'll be in person.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments on reopening? Okay, next item on the agenda is J2, discussion of the fiscal year 21 and 22 state budget.
Okay, I just wanted to bring this up because the state is giving a historic amount of $500 million to libraries this year. They voted on $500 million for libraries, which is really historic. This was proposed by the state Senate and Assembly, and by the time Governor Newsom signed it, it was tweaked in terms of how the money will be distributed. The original proposal did include funds for library facilities as well as lending devices like Wi-Fi hotspots and Chromebooks and that kind of thing, which I was interested in. And it also included a proposal of forgiving people's library fines as a road to going fine free. So we had to give the state library an estimate of the total figure for our library fines. We submitted figures to the state library about our facility needs. We already have Scenic, so that doesn't really apply to us. We're already on the CalRen network, so that doesn't apply to us so much. But when Newsom signed it, it did include quite a bit of money for public library infrastructure, but it was tweaked to prioritize life safety, which is still a little bit open to interpretation. Examples were things like fire systems. I mean, I'm assuming for libraries that are in places where we're having wildfires, like that is the kind of thing that falls under life safety. And they also are prioritizing high poverty areas. Redondo Beach generally does not qualify for that, but if there is money left over, they will distribute that to other cities. We are, in terms of matching whatever funds you get, it depends on your local operating income per capita. The local operating income per capita for Redondo Beach is $68.29. And if your LIPC is more than $40, there would be no reduction in local match. So whatever funding we received, we would have to match. But we did put in some quotes for things like replacing some lobby doors we have here with a roll down gate. The doors aren't working that well. In our meeting room, there's a divider that's never worked, and that would allow you to divide the meeting room here in two. I know we had a couple things at the North Branch that needed upgrading. So I'm hoping we may see some of those funds. The other thing is a lot of, it's surprising, but it's true of a lot of library systems that we had seen a decline in people using our tutor.com online homework assistance. And it's like $10,000 a year. So it's quite expensive. The Friends of the Library has been funding that. They haven't been able to operate their bookstore since COVID or up to full capacity. So we finally just dropped it this year, but there is a chance that is one of the items here that the state library might provide an online tutoring service. So it's possible we could get something like that back through the state library. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because it is a historic amount of money.
Questions or comments on the state budget? Commissioner Wilson?
You mentioned that we would be required to forgive any outstanding fines? Any idea how much that was?
You know,
I mean,
it's,
are we talking tens of dollars,
it
thousands
was,
of
no, it was a
dollars?
ton of money. It was surprisingly like something I can't remember, but I want to say like 500 grand or something. Like it was some really surprising amount of money because it was sort of from as far back as we go from years.
So we never expected to receive it anyway.
Well, I don't think we ever expected to receive the full amount, but that piece also did drop off when the bill was finally passed. That piece did drop off, so I don't think we're going to see any of that money. We have not gone fine-free here. However, we do have automatic renewal of materials, which gets you to a certain degree, gets you there because even libraries that are fine-free still fine people for not returning the book at all. You finally do get fined for the book. So it's just that you're late. They don't have late fees, basically. So when people's items are automatically renewed, it kind of does away with a lot of late fees because a lot of it is people just forgetting to renew their items.
Thank you.
Any more discussion of the state budget? All right, next item on the agenda is the J3 Director's Report.
Okay, I just wanted to point out just a couple things from the Director's Report. On June 1st, our Youth Services Librarian did email letters to all of our schools in Redondo Beach about the summer reading program. They also sent a video out about it because usually they visit all the schools every year. They weren't able to do that this year because of COVID. She also emailed letters to them about the Overdrive Sora app. And what that is, it's part of the Libby app. It's a separate app called Sora. And if a child has a school ID but does not have a library card, they can check out those items are items that we purchase, but they can check those items out if they go to school in Redondo Beach. And even private schools can join this app. So that's why she was sending information out to all the schools about it, especially the private schools, who I think probably don't know that much about it. And then under the August calendar, you'll see all of our outdoor programs we're doing this month. We have 4 children's programs and an outdoor teen craft. And I do think our patrons seem very excited about getting to do something in person. So like I said, we'll continue that if we're not able to do indoor in September.
Any comments or questions on the Director's Report? I looked at the numbers and it's like not quite back to normal, like just a little shy. Is that your sense of it as well, Director Anderson, in terms of circulation and the tent gate count?
I think by the way, thank you for pointing that out, because I also did want to mention the annual digital circulation comparison sheet as well. The thing is, what we're comparing here is, in 1920, we also were closed completely for the pandemic from March through July 1st, basically mid-March through July 1st. So that wasn't really a regular year either. So if you're comparing to a normal year, I think we're still,
Way low.
Significantly less, but
Okay.
we're, things are, on the uptick. And if you look at so at the end of every fiscal year, we compile the digital media circulation statistics that compares, like several fiscal years. And so again, fiscal year 1920, we were closed completely for, 4 months out of that year. And then fiscal year 20 to 21, we were closed for a great part of the year, and then we opened, but we still went up 28% over 1920 in terms of our digital circulation.
Any questions or comments on the Director's Report? Next item on the agenda is member items and referrals to staff. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Walsh, did you want to say something?
I did have something to say about the digital circulation and the metrics here. Thank you for the reports. I'm very much a numbers person, so I always like seeing some of this stuff. When we did the budget letter, the last budget letter that we put together, we noted that there was an increase in digital activity, and our assumption was that that would stay or even maybe increase a little bit as people became more familiar with digital technologies. So not necessarily anything to do yet other than maintaining an awareness as we go forward. It'll be interesting to see if our prediction, sustains. So these are good and interesting numbers, though. I'm glad people are leveraging the digital stuff.
Yeah, great point. Are there any member items, referrals to staff? Then I guess I'll ask, is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Nafisi, were you raising your hand?
So should it be a referral to staff to create the staff report for strategic plan?
Well, I think we've got me working on the letter with Chairperson Beauchamp and Commissioner Worsing. So
Good.
I can provide them with whatever, they decide they want to put in the letter. I'll be able to hopefully help with those numbers.
Okay. And then can you share the information in our next meeting, just so we have it in our next meeting too?
You mean the letter we come up with, or?
That would be great. Yeah, and then the report that you create with all the numbers would be great to see it.
Yes, and I can also bring back if Director Schramm sends me her, she said she could send me some statistics on their usage and their cost savings.
Sure.
I'll include that as well.
Thank you.
So this is what we were planning to do anyway. Just wanted to make sure that this isn't requiring another motion.
Well,
Should we make a motion to have this on the October agenda?
Why don't we make a motion to bring it back?
Agenda. I think just sharing the information that you find to the rest of the group is helpful. Unless people want to discuss it again, I'm not opposed to that. But
I can bring it back for the agenda. We can vote to have it on the next agenda.
Okay, we should vote.
Yeah, let's just go ahead.
Commissioner Nafisi, were you making a motion to add that to the agenda?
Sure. I'll make a motion to bring it back to the October meeting for the staff report to be shared at the October meeting, and we can bring it up for discuss it in the October meeting. That was a total mess of a motion. So
No, we got it. So the motion is to add to the October the next Commissioner meeting agenda, the Open Plus staff report. Yes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Hannan. If you could just say aye, or is there any discussion on the motion? All right, Commissioner Koopman.
Aye.
Commissioner Nafisi.
Aye.
Commissioner Hannan.
Aye.
Commissioner Walls.
Aye.
Commissioner Hall.
Aye.
And Commissioner Worsing.
Aye.
All right, so that'll be on our next agenda. I'm excited. I just think this is super cool. Is there any more discussion or member items and referrals to staff? I have a motion to adjourn.
And that's October 4th is the next meeting.
October 4th is the next meeting.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Nafisi. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Was that Commissioner Worsing?
No, it's Grace.
Commissioner Koopman. Hey, Grace. Thank you. All right. Any discussion? All right. Commissioner Koopman, you agree to adjourn?
Yes.
Commissioner Nafisi?
Aye.
All right. Commissioner Hannan?
Aye.
Commissioner Walls?
Aye.
Commissioner Hall?
Aye.
Commissioner Worsing?
Aye.
We all agree it's time to go watch